Danny and John, welcome back to Cayman Conversation. I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time. How are you folks doing today?
Well, great, Ralph. Great to speak to you as always, and great to speak to your listeners as well.
Great to be here. Good to have a conversation with you, Ralph.
Okay. Well, it's May and coming next month, and we are now towards the end of April. I didn't want to wait till we get into the last week in May and heading into June to talk about hurricane season. And so that's why we're starting this conversation fairly early. And Mr. John, can you just tell me what's forecasted for 2024?
Well, before we get into the forecast itself, okay, let's just take a little brief look back at 2023. 2023, we had 20 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. I suspect that if you ask the average Caymanian, they would not recognize the fact that the Atlantic season last year was that active, because we really didn't have that much to speak about here. But we're talking about the prediction of storms that form anywhere between us and mother country up in England and all of the east coast of the United States, all the way over to Africa. So it's a rather large area, and it's not unusual for the season to be very active, and yet nothing really bothers a certain area. And so the people in that area go like, well, did we really have a hurricane season? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that's the first part of it. The second part has to do with the precursors. And that's what the seasonal prediction people are looking at. Okay. So when the scientists are starting to put together the season prediction, there are some elements that they include in that seasonal prediction. The first thing they look at is the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean. So I pulled up the current sea surface temperatures and what we call the anomalies of it. And the temperatures are running anywhere from 2 to about 4 degrees above normal in the Atlantic Basin. We're talking more the Eastern Atlantic Basin than the Western Atlantic Basin. Some of the Western Atlantic Basin is still having some impacts from the winter months and what have you. So you're getting little bubbles of cold air that comes down and give you little pockets of cold, lower than normal sea surface temperatures. But the Atlantic Basin, when you're looking at sea surface temperatures, you're starting to look more out in the heart of the Atlantic Basin, as ocean, as it were. And those are running somewhere between 2 to 4 degrees. Okay. The second component of that is what we call the El Nino La Nina cycle. All right. The ENSO is what it's called. And what the prediction on that is, and it is very tricky, and sometimes it does make a fool of a lot of us. All right. But the idea basically right now is that right now we're in the process of transitioning from an El Nino cycle that was in place all last year to a neutral phase right now. Okay. So there's an 85% chance of that being in place between April and June of this year. Okay. And then there's a full transition over to the La Nina cycle by June to August. And they're giving that a 60% chance. So not a definite, but a fairly strong chance that for the heart and soul of our hurricane season this year, we will have a La Nina cycle. Okay. Both of those work together to produce forecasts that indicates a very active season. Colorado State is usually our main indicator of what's going to happen in the Atlantic Ocean. And their prediction came out on April the 4th. Usually in the first week of April of every year, Colorado State puts out their prediction. And they're calling for an extremely active season. Now, remember, we had 20 named storms last year. So this year, they're saying we're going to have 23 named storms. All right. We're going to have 11 hurricanes, and we're going to have 5 major hurricanes. Okay. Now, in terms of what that means, okay, and that is, this is the most active season that Colorado State has forecast since they started releasing products in 1996. Okay, And to be honest with you, my experience goes back to the mid 1980s, and I do not recall a hurricane season prediction of this caliber. All right, so it is going to be a very active season, and we're going to be sitting on the edge of our seats, and we're going to be hearing a lot of names on storms all around the place. Okay, I don't know how many is going to be in the Northwest Caribbean. It doesn't give that kind of detail, but just know that it is predicted to be a very active season.
Thank you, John. That sounds fairly serious, but it's good to know what we're expecting and what we geared up for. Danny, we're going to call you in right here. Seeing that we're going to be fairly active, are all our plans in place? Or what should people be doing right now?
Ralph, great to be here again. And I think just to sort of reiterate John's points, I mean, last year we started this time last year. It was looking to be a below average season. Of course, the forecast has changed throughout the season, and we saw that very much last year. But it is a significantly increased cyclone activity this year, as we've seen so far from Colorado State University. And again, as John says, it's one we tend to rely on. So we are taking this pretty seriously. At the end of the day, though, of course, as we say every year, no matter what the forecast is, it really only takes one storm to totally change your life and your island and the way we know life to be. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a really, really severe season or whether it looks like it's a low season. I'd say that the preparation